Joe Biden is sitting on his hands. He refuses to take care of the border. He refuses to hold the drug cartels accountable. This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsome.
I support border security. I think the asylum system is broken. I believe that we need...
I understand that.
I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state. Biden administration, the last 3 years, has been a master.
Joe Biden paying you tonight?
3.9%.
I thought this was state versus state.
No, but it's about the United States of America. I thought this guy was running for president of the United States. If
You
you're
are
running
too.
for
You just won't admit it.
running for a third.
You just won't admit it. You will not admit it.
Is Joe Biden experiencing this cognitive decline? Is it a danger to the country? Do you find when he speaks, what is your reaction to it?
Yes, he's in decline. Yes, it's a danger to the country. He has no business running for president. And, you know, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. That's why he's running his shadow campaign.
We'll take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. You had quarantines. You had quarantines. You had checkpoints all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this, dead to right. You did that. You followed science. You followed Fauci.
That's not
he followed science. He followed.
You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person.
Slow down. I want everyone to be heard. If I can ask you, I really do want this to breathe. I want this debate to breathe. I want it to organically develop. To do that, I need both your cooperation. I don't want to be a hall monitor. It's not my style, all right?
This is a book that's in some of the schools in California. Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography, it's cartoons, it's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools.
Those books, do you believe that's appropriate for school districts to teach kids? Yes or no?
Come on, that's not part of the curriculum. They're not teaching
those
kids
are those are books that were in school.
Hold on. The bottom line is you are on a book banning binge, your state. 1,406 books, 3,362 in this country.
You didn't answer.
Florida's
what about those books?
That's not. We don't provide for K through third grade education that kind of curriculum. It's just made up.
Goodbye, fourth grade.
These guys make it up. It's part of this cultural purge.
Should it be?
Just
what grade would it be acceptable?
What I find offensive, Sean.
You're not going to answer my question?
And Ron, what I...
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday Night Live. So I did want to spend some time. I know a lot of people were saying were cracking jokes. A lot of Trump supporters in particular, but a lot of people cracking jokes about the debate before it happened and saying how it wasn't really worthwhile. But you know what? It was worthwhile, and more so than just for DeSantis's own purposes to get himself out there and sort of distance himself and kind of be able to speak to the American people directly about his accomplishments in Florida, as opposed to being on stage with the rest of the coconut doo-doo-doos, the Chris Christies and all that, like is going on tonight. I think Gavin Newsom personally is the next presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. At least he was until this debate. I feel like this debate kind of exposed the many vulnerabilities that he has, and it helped Donald Trump. I think this helped Donald Trump. I don't think anybody expected for DeSantis. I don't think DeSantis expected to go in there and gain big ground on Donald Trump. Trump supporters are locked in. It is what it is. It's a huge deficit. I don't really believe it's the size the polls do, because I just don't believe in polls in general. I'm not one of those people who believe the polls when they're for me and then criticize them when they're against me. I just think polls are BS. But I do think whatever the lead is, it's sizable, right? So I think in the end, barring some huge change of events, I don't see Trump losing the primary at this point. But it is still early, so we will wait. We've seen crazy stuff before. But why was this debate relevant, and why did it help Donald Trump? I think it helped Donald Trump in a way where Trump's not a good debater, right? Let's just face it. He's not. He does a lot of, it's going to be great. When I do it, it's going to be better than you've ever seen, But he's short on how he's going to do things and how he will accomplish those goals. But that's fine. That's him. It's who he is. But when it comes to a debate, he had some zingers, right? That against Hillary, he did okay. But again, you need to have a particularly weak candidate, which Gavin Newsom is. But having Gavin Newsom dismantled, he's their only hope, really, to put somebody who at least can be articulate. Obviously, he's an epic fail here in the People's Republic of California. I don't know anybody who actually likes the guy. I'm sure they exist. But, when I went to vote for his recall, I could have put 50 ballots in there and nobody would have cared. And that was with me calling it out that I had multiple ballots. Still no one cared. It's that way here. It's just like normal in California for that to be the case. So if you're wondering how people like Gavin Newsom keep getting elected, but in the end, DeSantis dismantling him on a variety of issues. I've seen some left-wing videos. I always go check them out to see, how they handle this stuff. And there's always a spin. And I even saw one acting like Gavin Newsom destroyed everyone. His wife ended that debate. So just to put it in perspective, whatever he thought he was doing, maybe he thought he was killing it, but his wife was watching that thing saying, no, we're done. I don't even know why you did this in the first place. I feel like she knows better than the candidate did in that sense. But if for those who didn't watch it, DeSantis at one point after Newsom lists all these fake accomplishments, we saved the climate, we saved the world, blah, 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 blah. DeSantis comes back and tells the story about at first he just says a constituent had approached him and said, what a great job he's done in Florida. And you're kind of watching it like where's he going with this? And then at the end of it, he's like, and then he let me know that he was Gavin Newsom's father-in-law. So his own father-in-law is approaching DeSantis, living in Florida, approaching DeSantis, telling him what a great job he did. It was just one haymaker after another. And watching Newsom be like, no, that's not true. That doesn't happen. That's made up. On stuff that we all know is true. It's not like DeSantis was throwing conspiracy theory out there. He held up, as I put into the ticker, he held up the map of the infamous San Francisco Poop Finder app, where people can put in their own wherever they see feces, human feces, they snap a picture, they take it, they upload it to the app, and the app is the map is just covered in brown. I mean, it's just everywhere. There was an NBC report that I clipped into the ticker where they went around to 153 blocks and found over, I think it was 180 samples of human feces. So averaging more than on every block out of 153 blocks. It's not like they walked around a small little area. And so, and that's the state of California. I mean, he called him out on the Xi Jinping thing. So if you haven't been following that, like San Francisco finally cleaned up their streets. They were immaculate. The city must have looked awesome, except for these barricades that they put everywhere. They cleaned up all the streets. And you say, wow, okay. If you're living in San Francisco, you're probably like, you don't follow politics. You might have been sitting there going, hey, these guys are finally going to clean this stuff up. They're finally, making it happen for us. And, but in the end, no, that's not at all what happened. What happened was they cleaned the streets up for literally the greatest enemy to the United States and the world, really, right now, in Xi Jinping. I mean, Xi Jinping is Hitler on steroids, right down to the concentration and re-education camps and the genocides and you name it, the social credit scores and complete lockdown, the whatever, all of it. And we here in the U.S., all right, there is actually a city and they hung Chinese flags all over the place. I mean, Xi Jinping must have for those that understand how this works, leaders like Putin, Xi Jinping, even the Ayatollahs in Iran and like these dictator types, they only respect strength. And when you walk into a country and your impression, you're walking into San Francisco and, from a foreign perspective and a propaganda perspective, like, in the U.S., San Francisco's looked down upon now, right? It's no longer a tourist destination. It's a hot mess. Nobody wants to go there. Everybody knows it. But internationally, it still sells as a major U.S. city that is of respectful nature. And for him to be able to get these visuals that they're clearly going to play on Chinese propaganda television, that of him going down the streets of San Francisco and Chinese flags all over the place. Now, to the citizens of San Francisco's credit, they did go out and begin to rip down those flags off the barricades and kind of took down. I don't know what the timeline was as far as them doing that, but whether it was before or after, Xi came through. But the fact that Newsome, would go through these great lengths to clean up San Francisco to honor the single biggest enemy to the United States right now on every front. They're actively trying to take down the U.S. dollar. Their propaganda rages wild as far as data collection, as far as property theft, intellectual property theft. Every piece of technology that the Chinese have has been stolen, almost all of which was stolen from the United States or other Western nations. But every piece of technology they have falls under that category. And it's just wild that we would even like, and the fact that look, it's not shocking that Joe Biden did not, stop this mayhem from happening, because obviously, between his son, himself, etc., they're deep in bed with all this stuff too, with respect to the Chinese. Excuse me, my Scooby-Doo phone is going off here. But they're deep in bed with the Chinese as well, as is a good portion. I mean, all of our universities are, right? The Confucius Institutes, things of that nature. So, and those are all things, by the way, that Ron DeSantis, even as governor, has been attacking. And I would make a plea to other Trump supporters, and I will be voting for Trump, but I will make a plea. Stop with the attacks on DeSantis. The dude's a gem, and he understands the threat to the United States better than anybody running for president right now. I say that not even tongue-in-cheek. I know the attacks that Trump has taken. Like, Trump understands deep state and how it will go after you and all that. Yes, he absolutely does firsthand. But when it comes to the worldwide threat, like the fact that DeSantis went after Confucius Institutes, most people don't even know what that is. So when I hear a candidate go after it, even Ramaswamy, who usually is very good with understanding the problem and not being afraid to discuss the solution, right? Ramaswamy is very good at that. and better than DeSantis at that. But when it comes to the whole picture, like when he was talking about going after Confucius Institutes, or like pulling Florida's here's another one, pulling Florida's pension funds from BlackRock. Like, those are little things that don't get highly reported, but they demonstrate a very good understanding of how this game is working. Because BlackRock, if you're not aware, I'm sure you've heard of BlackRock, but if you're not aware, besides the fact that they've got a majority stake in just about every company that's worth anything, that company is managing other people's money, and the vast wealth that it manages, the majority of it comes from state pension funds. Like, all 50 states should be pulling out of BlackRock, all 50. But they're not. Some did. Some followed the lead of DeSantis and did. But it's issues like that. This guy's a gem. And whether the fact that he's not going to be the next president, doesn't really matter. It doesn't make him less of a gem. He's running against a guy who is a cult leader right now. I mean, like I don't know how else to describe the cult of personality that is Trump. But that's that's what it is. Trump. The American people have to see Trump get his 4 years out. They need redemption. The Trump voters from 2020 need redemption for those. And even if DeSantis is a great candidate, it doesn't matter. Trump's going to get his redemption. All right. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying, in the process, yes, understand they have to duel it out a little bit. That's a part of the primary process. But the primary ends and we all go back to normal. That's how this works. And the fact of the matter is, DeSantis is a gem. We should not be attacking him, bashing him, acting like he's irrelevant. He is far from irrelevant. And that type of gem with those type of leadership skills that could turn states from purple to dark red, for people who are out there that can, huge states, right? Florida is a very important state, and it was purple forever. Forever. Let us not forget 2000. That state has been a swing state forever. It's no longer a swing state. It is dark red. And that has happened because of the people who have been able to get elected under DeSantis on his coattails. The entire legislature turned over in his second run. Those people are gems, okay? Because they don't just win for themselves. They bring everybody in. Like if Trump were to win and we don't get the Congress, right? If he wins and we don't get the Congress, we've got 4 years of just stalemating and executive orders and nonsense. Nothing happens, right? And if he wins and we do get the Congress, then it can be like if you notice, Florida's been churning out bills one after the other, just dismantling the Marxist movement in Florida, just dismantling it. Cleaning up their schools, hitting every front, right? Disassociating from BlackRock. They don't allow Confucius Institute to operate in their state. Like those types of things. I mean, Florida is exempt from Marxism right now because they own all three houses, right? So DeSantis isn't just not like he's just making all these things happen, out of his will. He's making it happen because he got those people elected into the state legislature, and they're putting together these bills, and he's popping them off. He's signing them. And one after the other, they're coming out, and it's important that everybody understand that. This man is very important. And when Trump's gone in 2024, this is the man. We're a long way away from 2028, but barring some superstar coming out to play, this is the man that you want in charge when Trump is gone. Did not want Ramaswamy in charge. I like Ramaswamy, but he is not the guy. Maybe 15 years from now. But he will get eaten alive by the machine. He will get eaten alive. I mean, right now, the greatest path to longevity for people who can hold off or even defeat the machine is 4 years of Trump, 8 years of DeSantis. That's what to get the most out of it. That's where we're at. That's what we have in the field right now. And it's a damn good position to be in because it's 12 years of direct combat to the globalist Marxist movement that involving, look, nothing's going to fix problems like education the same way that Article 5 will, right? Nothing's going to fix problems that no president, no matter who gets elected, is going to get the deficit, not the deficit, the debt turned around. No president's going to do that. But what presidents can do is they can secure the border, right? The laws are already on the books. Right now, the problem we have at the border is a true derelict of duty. It's truly just not enforced. It's a conscious decision by those in power to not, and I say those in power because it ain't Biden. And I think we all know that now. So those in power have made a conscious decision to not secure the border, not only to not secure it, but to literally advertise and promote people crossing illegally. Those are things the president can fix. And that would be nice to have that getting addressed while we get this convention going. And by the way, either next week or the week after, I will have Michael Arnold on board. I don't know what it is, but he says he's got some good stuff to talk about. So, and I always love having him on. He is the regional director in the East Coast. So there are about 5 or 6 states that fall under him. He's been on the broadcast before. I definitely appreciate and always learn something every time he comes on. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. But to get back to this, I don't know what it is, and maybe someone can drop in the comments. I know that normally it's Rumble that we have our largest viewership live on, even though I've got about 18,000 more or 17,900 subscribers more on Facebook. But, in the end, Rumble does seem to be the one. Leave in the comments, what your thoughts are. And maybe if you are one of those people who's been bashing DeSantis and riding that train, and what the reason is for it, because I just don't see it. I don't see the logic in it. And when I see DeSantis, it made total sense to me once I sat through and talked about it. At first, I didn't really get it, why they were doing this, but they do have an ongoing feud between Florida and California. They have been trading blows for a while, not on stage, but just, DeSantis making reference to how bad it is, using them as the example of what they shouldn't be. And then, Newsome just shooting back, trying to say that there's some kind of leader. And so this was kind of coming anyway, even if neither one was running for president. But, I think from DeSantis's perspective, it was like, dude, I'm tired of being, Trump won't show up. Right. And I guess when you don't show up, you're in big trouble. But Trump's cult of personality that he's carrying right now, like he could never say another word to the end till the election comes and still remain in the lead the way it is. So, and I think DeSantis and the rest of the crew running know that, well, why were you still running then? Well, you're still running because you still want to get your name out there. You still want the facial recognition. You don't want to be lost. Now, DeSantis doesn't really need to do that because his name is in the national news fairly regularly anyway. But it does, to him, it's like, what? Number one, we don't know what they're like. Let's face it, guys. It's not like these guys are hoping for something bad to happen to Trump, but it's not something you can discredit. It's not something you can blow up. Tucker had mentioned in multiple times, that he felt assassination was the only thing left for Trump, and people kind of laughed at him. But if you think about it, it's not as crazy. I mean, I don't think it would happen, but they're out of options now, right? Like, what else can they do to Donald Trump? They have tried everything in the deep state playbook as far as slandering, and they haven't moved a soul in the right direction, with their right direction. Not a soul. If anything, there are a lot of people who, I don't know if anybody's on the fence. I think that term is overused. But there are a lot of people, though, who didn't like Trump or didn't vote for him last time, and now are suspect at the fact that they're going after him so hard because it doesn't make sense. because, and they're just for the obvious reasons. Like, my goodness, they're just throwing one crappy lawsuit against a former president. Like, if you're going to take a lawsuit to a former president of the United States, you better have your ducks in a row. You better be ready to demonstrate with a truckload of evidence, etc. For there to be multiple attacks that are just garbage. I mean, they're garbage. They literally are garbage. I mean, the New York lawsuit is laughable. It's not even something that, forget it. That one's done already. It's just a joke. And when you look at if you look at what they have to prove in each of the, I mean, most of them are based on the concept that Trump in some way knew that he had really lost and just wanted to be subversive. Like, that, not only is that stupid, and not only does anybody with half a brain know, if Trump believes anything, and he believes to this day, as do many Americans, that he won that election. There's not a part of the core being of Donald Trump that doesn't believe that he won that election. And for them to need to prove that in order to make any of these cases stick just makes it ridiculous. And it's like, on what planet do judges entertain lawsuits that make absolutely no sense when they're against a former president of the United States? Like, it's just unprecedented, as are so many things when it comes to Donald Trump and the efforts to try and get rid of him. But as they go through and do these things, more and more people are coming to his side. While he was in office, it's important to remember that, while no president that had more votes in their second run than they did in their first had ever lost an election in history, he not only had more, he had 10 million more. Like, the argument that the man, lost because people hated him so much is crazy. More people loved him the second time than the first. And that's after 4 years of straight, an onslaught of attacks and slurs and, you name it. And he gains popularity. Then they throw these court cases against him, gains more popularity. Like, they are out of options. They are, and the question becomes, really, there's only one option left. And I think this is where Tucker was coming from. Like, you're going to have to kill this guy if you don't want him running, because you ain't winning any of these lawsuits and he's running. And there's no way. I mean, there is a surge of voting populists right now that is just outrageous. For you to try and beat him again, if you think you're going to pull off another 2020, like, that's not going to happen. And I just can't imagine that. I can't say, let me draw that back a little. I can't say it can't happen, because I would have said 2020 couldn't have happened, because even though I always felt, and there always was some level of fraud in our elections, there was a district in the Romney election where, and it wasn't a huge district, but there were like 60,000 people in it, and not one vote in the entire district went for Mitt Romney. Like, I'm like, that's just impossible, right? When you see numbers like that, you're like, all right, there's clearly there were some issues in that district, right? But to do it on a scale like was suggested in 2020, you would think that's impossible. So I don't want to say nothing's impossible. Biden getting 81 million votes is hilarious. I think that's hilarious, right? But in the end, what are you going to do? It is what it is. We're here where we are. Trump is going to be the next candidate for president. And DeSantis, hopefully, if people could just relax and lay off. Because I'll tell you this, once the primary comes and it's over, DeSantis is going to be supporting Trump. Like I don't know if you guys understand how this works. Like, that's how it is. And rightfully so, if by some crazy freaking twist of fate that DeSantis did win the primary, the expectation should be that Trump would support him. I mean, what's he going to do? Support Biden? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that DeSantis can win. But, like, I'm just saying, like, that's the way primaries work. You got to go after the other candidate. You got to differentiate yourself. There are differences between these two candidates, legitimate differences. And those differences should be brought out. You know, the fact that Trump's running from debates, and he is running from them. Let's stop. We all know he's not. He's not a great debater. You know, his team was like, "Dude, you're up by 40 points. Why on earth would you go get killed at a debate like that? There's nothing good for you in that debate. Do not go there." He says it's because he doesn't want to meet with Chris. He doesn't want to, elevate Christie and whatever and these other people. But I'm like, I get that too. I don't even know why Christie is still in the debates. Really, it should just be Nikki Haley, Ramaswamy, and DeSantis. But nonetheless, Trump's not a good debater, so he's never gonna go toe to toe with someone who actually is qualified and can, and can show. And if DeSantis can remove Gavin Newsom prior, that's big. That's a big deal because the people in San Francisco, I could tell you right now, are not going to be happy. They're not happy with what just went down with this whole Xi Jinping thing. Like Gavin, look, if San Francisco just turned red like out of nowhere over one issue that just pissed everyone off as much as anything, they wouldn't be prepared. There aren't enough people that they could bus in that would be able to stop that election from going red. And if he loses San Francisco, he's in a heap of crap. Now, LA's not in much better condition than San Francisco. I actually was just down there last weekend. We had to go to this whatever. It doesn't matter. I was down there, and in their downtown area, which is blocks away from the tent camps and all that. They try and keep it all out of their little downtown area. If you're familiar with San Francisco, if you've been to Manhattan, like it's nothing like that. It's like 3 blocks of Manhattan, 3 or 4 blocks of Manhattan, and then it's all suburbs. So we were in that 3 or 4 blocks though, because we had to go to specific places there. And I can tell you that the smell of urine was in the air. Graffiti was everywhere. Like I said, they keep the homeless fairly. They can't keep them all out. There were a couple guys, who were definitely mentally ill. More than a couple actually, just floating around. But it wasn't in that section. You don't get the tent cities. That's like 4 or 5 blocks away. They're good at keeping them away from where people with money, might go. But in the end, like those cities, if the people in those cities have to be getting to their wits' end. They have to be. And if Gavin Newsom became the candidate, I have a hard time believing that like Californians at least are going to get excited to get up and vote for this guy. And after watching, I could guarantee you the people in San Francisco were cheering on DeSantis when he held up that map regarding the human feces and everything else. And when he called him out for cleaning up the streets, not for the people of San Francisco, but for a freaking foreign dictator. Like, that's got to hit home with the people in San Francisco. It's like, you know what? No, we didn't clean these for you. Like, you don't matter. As soon as this is over, you're going to go back to living in squalor while paying $4,000 for a 1-bedroom flat. Like, that's, if you're that person paying $4,000, and I can attest to the ridiculous energy costs and everything else that comes with living in the People's Republic of California. All right. Everything from your toothbrush to the friggin', to gasoline, to you name it, is more expensive in California. And if you're in that position and paying that kind of money and you watch that debate, you had to be cheering on DeSantis. Doesn't mean you're going to vote for him in some primary or whatever. But just the fact that there's somebody on a stage who's calling out the plight that, like the rest of the country is just like whatever. Question in California, I question the elections greatly. Hold on, folks. All right, folks. Sorry about that. I had got a little spaz out from my software here. So, but like I said, I questioned it in my on my really personal Facebook page, as I didn't have this all set up. I don't believe, maybe I did, but I didn't put it up here for the recall for Gavin Newsom. I had um, I had gone ahead and went into City Hall, which for me in a small city that I'm in was this little space. Went in, more than one ballot. I had my ballot and I had my wife's ballot. And it felt weird because I normally don't go with two ballots. But they did mail them to us, so I brought it in person. And they mail them to everybody, so all the rumors and all that's all true. That everybody gets one, whether you're dead, whatever. Some households, house of three gets six, like it happens all the time. Went in, I felt weird, so I asked the woman behind the desk at City Hall. I said, I have two ballots here. I don't. Does someone have to check them? Or she asked me, are they signed? I said, yeah. She was like, no, you just do whatever. Never actually looked at the ballot, so I could have had 10. Didn't look at the signatures. Didn't want to check the signatures to anything. Just go ahead. So if I had walked in there with 10 and I walked out, and my post that I put up was Gavin Newsom's not getting recalled today, and he didn't. And at the time I did this was early in the day, and there was still a lot of people who were very positive about Larry Elder, but I was like, not today. Not after what I just witnessed. Not today. Because if you can do that, someone is. And for that to be in City Hall in a city in California was all I needed to hear. I didn't need to hear, anything major beyond that. But one of the things from this debate that I wanted to spin off into its own subject was when DeSantis attacked Gavin Newsom on the education system, and in particular the pornography that is in children's libraries. And Newsom's response was first a lie, then he clarified and basically said everything up to K through third grade do not get this book. And the book that he was showing was a book called Gender Queer, a memoir. Now, there are a multitude of books in California middle school libraries that are straight pornography. And you probably know this, it goes on across the country as well. Some schools are quote unquote banning books. This is nonsense, more talk track nonsense. Removing a book from a school library for being child inappropriate is not banning a book. If someone puts Penthouse magazine in a child library and you say this can't be here, it's not age appropriate, you didn't just ban that book. The books are still accessible. No one's saying they should not be allowed on the market. They're just saying keep it away from kids. And that Gender Queer book I'm going to get into a little bit with you, because it's when I went in. Now I've seen, and read and whatever, a lot of these stories, listen to the parents as they read them off in these Board of Ed meetings. And, so I'm not shocked that there's inappropriate stuff in them, but I have to give like a disclaimer to show what's actually in these books from an image standpoint. And to hear Gavin Newsom say this is everything fourth grade and higher. Right? Fourth grade and higher. So we're talking like 8 years old. It's wild. It's wild. But here's the exchange between Newsom and DeSantis when DeSantis brings it up. And then I'll go into show you some of the content that DeSantis holds up a piece of paper in his hand. And it says outright they had to black out some portions of it. I'm showing it straight from the web, so I can't black out some portions of it. But I'm going to skim through it. I don't know if I'll show the whole thing. I may drop the link in the comments, but I'm going to show you enough to disgust you and demonstrate the point that DeSantis was 100% right.
This is a book that's in some of the schools in California. Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography. It's cartoons. It's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools.
Those books Do you believe that's appropriate for school districts to teach kids? Yes or no?
Come on, those aren't not. It's not part of the curriculum. They're not
Excuse me,
teaching
those
kids
are
that.
Those are books that were in school.
Hold on. The bottom line is you are on a book banning binge, your state. 1,406 books, 3,362 in this country.
You didn't answer.
Florida's
what about
leading,
those
no,
books?
Florida. That's not, we don't provide for K through third grade education, that kind of curriculum. It's just made up.
Goodbye, fourth grade.
These guys make it up. It's part of this cultural purge.
Should it
it's
be?
just a made
What grade?
up
What grade would it be acceptable?
What I find offensive, Sean.
You're not going to answer my question?
Right. So, and Sean keeps asking, like, what grade would be? What grade would be? And points out the fact that he's just not going to answer that question straight. He went as far as say, I allow it up to third grade, but like beyond that, it's like no way. And so you saw I hope you got to see in what he was holding up, because they blacked it out there, but it was actually oral sex being performed by two boys. All right. And it's so disgusting when you put it in the context of a fourth grade. So a fourth grader goes in the library and this is the type of content. And there are other books in there as well that are equally as disturbing. Okay. But in the end, like this one was the pinnacle. All right. It really was. It was the pinnacle. And I'm going to try and show. Here we go. So, wait, not yet. These are the images, okay, that show up in a fourth grader's book. So when Desantis sits there and acts like, that's not in our schools. That's not in our curriculum. That's like he's playing with words. He's playing with words because in the end, what he's doing is saying, all right, well, that's not a part of what we're doing. Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And like, if you just look at this, it's all, I mean, I'd read some of this stuff to you, but like, it's just absolutely wild. Look, this dude's got his butt hanging out. Like, it's just, I don't want to devalue the program by playing it too long. But the point of the matter is, it's so disgusting. They won't let them play this in these Board of Ed meetings. They won't let them show this material in these Board of Ed meetings. And the reason why I wanted to focus on this education piece is because remove a lot of this, if not all of this. If you're not aware, if you follow this channel, all right, it's not about the sex, it's not about transgenders. It's not about making people feel comfortable. It's about separating parents from their children intellectually. It's about raising children. The school believes, as in every Marxist nation that has ever existed, all right, from Mao's China to Hitler's Reich to Stalin, you name it. One thing that is absolutely necessary, two things actually. One is to separate people from their religion, and two, the state needs to control education. And that's exactly what this is. And there is no shortage of people, former Soviet defectors, or people who are children in the Soviet Union. I was listening to Glenn Beck interview one of them, and the guy was talking about, look, at the dinner table, what we talked about was, my dad telling me, look, learn math, learn how to read, right? Learn how to write, right? But everything aside from that, ignore. Everything aside from that is damage that they're trying to do to your thought process. It's indoctrination. And that's exactly what that's the same conversation that parents need to have with their children today, because people like Gavin Newsom are out there and they're in control of major things like a 40 million person state. Okay. And a lot of the people who side with him have been through these education programs and believe these things to be true. And they believe that the government is a force for good, and they believe that in this mythical, mythical racism that exists under the core of American society, and you don't believe it because you just can't see it, or you can't see it but it's there, and that sort of thing. But now that 2020 has happened and parents got a glimpse into the classroom, because that's really where the strength was, right? It was that parents did not have a glimpse in the classroom. People didn't even notice, and I'm guilty of this too, that like high schools just completely stopped doing parent teacher day. They just completely stopped doing it. There was not one parent teacher day where you get to walk in and see the classroom and talk to their teacher and get some feedback. There was none of that. My daughter's a senior now, all 4 years, none of it. And the reason for that is, if you walk into those classrooms, if parents saw what was going on in those classrooms, they would be pissed off. And they know that. And the idea is, and what they had done before 2020 was they were, and I'm sure there are parents out there who relate to this, especially those, that have kids that got through college, is that you send them to college, they come back with an entirely twisted coconut. They come back thinking that the United States is the worst thing in the world, that we're the reason for all evils. I mean, that's what it is, right? That's what it is. And it's, of course we're not, right? And it's not that we have a shortage of baggage, because we do. The deep state is real. The military industrial complex, as coined by Eisenhower, was not a fictional concept. Truman created it. He also spoke about it. And it's done a ton of damage to the United States reputation around the world. A ton of damage. And there's no healing that damage. I don't know what's going on with the system here, but sorry about that, folks. But the fact of the matter is that when it comes down to, when it comes down to deep state and the damage that they've done, if the world saw us do something like Article 5, okay, if they saw us go ahead and restrict our federal government's power and take direct action against the deep state, if they saw the American people do that, that can all be rectified. And it's not like we need to do it to show the world, because frankly, we're American and we don't really care. But in the end, we should do it for ourselves. And the byproduct of that will go ahead and show the world that this experiment in liberty is the greatest system that has ever been created. And the fact that we've gone through this dark period is not something that cannot be fixed. Why? Because of the beauty of the constitutional republic that we live in. Because the power is ours in the end, once we realize it. Now, they've educated that out of us. They have removed civics for decades, replacing it with the Soviet concept of social studies, something that multiple defectors from the Soviet Union warned about. Just Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a perfect example, with the author of the Gulag Archipelago, among others, in his state of the the Warning to the West. And you might be able to download that. It's not a long read. It's a speech. It's about 50 pages long. But in the last couple of pages, there's one he did in the U.S. and one he did, I believe, in Britain. But in the last couple of pages of it, he clearly states to beware. He's telling America, beware of those seeking finer shades of equality and social justice. He calls it by name. And he says outward, they're trying to destroy your magnificent country. And because he understood the difference and he knows the tactic. Yuri Bezmenov, another one, expert in KGB propaganda. Everybody knows him as being, I got the shirt in the store. Says Yuri was right. Sat there, taught classes in universities. There's a famous video on YouTube that everybody goes to, where he sits down and articulates for you exactly what they've been doing. And removing civics and replacing it with social studies was one of those things. Because in a nation like this, where these mechanisms do exist, it is imperative that we not know about it. It is imperative that we not know they exist. As they continue to bring up fake issues online and wild ass, stuff like, the United States is really a corporation. Like, nobody thinks this stuff through. We just get angry. We give up. We're like, oh my God, look at this. It's all over. And that's exactly the point of it all. Is to get the population to start thinking to itself, it's lost. Like, everything is so crazy right now. We've got young generations running around thinking men can have babies, people believing there are an infinite number of genders. They can be kittens and lions and bears. We've got a $36 trillion debt and counting. We've got all of these things going on. Our education system's a hot mess, right? But we're electing people who we think are good, but they turn out to be garbage, one after the other for decades. Like, there's just no way out, it seems. And that's exactly what the entire point of ideological subversion was. As Yuri described it, it was like, he said something along the lines of, it's a slow process designed to get everyone to not be able to make any sense of anything and to not believe anyone or anything. I mean, these are all things that have taken place by design. These are not things that organically happened, right? And the stuff that DeSantis was pointing out in the Gavin Newsom debate was meaningful. It was meaningful for those who still don't believe it. For those who still don't believe that there would be a governor or someone of that ilk who would not, who would be this way, who would allow who could keep getting elected and allow that sort of thing. But you can bet, right, despite trying to recall him. And that's one of the other reasons I'm so suspect on California elections, because of all the recalls. It's like, how does people keep getting elected that later get recalled, right? Schwarzenegger won because they recalled Gavin Newsom, right? They tried to recall Jerry Brown, tried to recall Gavin Newsom. Like, how do people win when there's that many people against them? Like, so many people, enough so that they rallied to get all of these signatures, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of signatures. Like, it's a whole process to get a recall going. Yet we do it with a good amount of consistency here in California, and it does make you lose faith in the election process. Because when you walk the streets, it's like any other state. Well, I live inland, so I don't deal with the animale in San Francisco and LA. But like, when you talk to people in the streets, like, everybody wants the same things, dude. The same things that people like Gavin Newsom are not providing. Like people are not, like, it's when people say you voted for that, like, no, a lot of people did not. Like, and I would argue a lot of people did not. And they play games with the districts here. Like, every year or 2 years, there's a new district. You got a new district name. I got Sabrina Cervantes, I think, right now. And like, I just sent her a letter asking to have a conversation about convention of states, because it matters, even though I'm in California, right? But these people are, I don't know if these people were, how they get voted in. I think in the localities, it happens because of the gerrymandering. But these statewide elections, they were a clown show. Even if they're legitimate, it's because the honor system worked. There's absolutely no checking of anything except, that the name that you told them verbally is on the paper that they're looking for. I mean, it's nuts. It's wild. It's wild, how it goes like that. But nonetheless, it goes like that. And that's how, But I mean, they got the debates going on right now. And, I don't know if people are lining up to watch them. I usually get the shortcuts. I don't want to have to sit through Chris Christie answering a question. Like, I just can't. I just want to fast forward past him and get to, Haley, DeSantis, and Ramaswamy, who are usually saying the same things. So it's not really, without Trump in the debate, it almost makes no sense. To me, it almost makes no sense. I'd rather see Newsom and DeSantis go at it than the Dutaroos that are on stage right now. I feel like that's more relevant, because Gavin Newsom will likely be a candidate. None of these people will. So I'd like to see us throw our best governor up at them and let us go against what they consider their best and see those stark differences in how an executive is supposed to behave and what the responsibilities of an executive are and what the results are. And it's clear, it was clear throughout that entire piece that DeSantis was the superior leader in all aspects. And that's important because down the road, like I said, when Newsom does get the nod, because they don't have anybody else, when Newsom gets the nod, now Trump's got a softer candidate. Now he's got a candidate that's already been beat up. And I can bet you that Trump will reference some points from this debate in the presidential debate. If he's going up to debate against Newsom, I can guarantee you he's going to point out some of the stuff that DeSantis covered and probably even give some love to DeSantis. He'd be like, oh, I'll never do that. It's like, yeah, he will. Because why? It's politics. And the fact of the matter is, you know, they may not love each other, but they don't hate each other like on that level. That's all fabricated nonsense. That's all stuff to just make sure that that DeSantis doesn't gain any traction. And that's fine. That's a strategy. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. You should be going after DeSantis to some degree. But I would like to see Trump do it a little less and go with that kind of lead, like start hitting Biden a little bit, right? Start hitting the target. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure that'll happen more as time goes on. But I know the debates are probably hurting the audience right now for me, but I definitely want to get it on and be recorded because I think we still got about 15 people or so on. So, and for me, just so you know, I don't do, even though I got 18,000 followers, almost 18,000. By the way, we're getting close. I'm at like 17,940. So if you haven't subscribed yet, click that button for Facebook. Click it for wherever you're watching, but Facebook in particular, I would like to hit that 18,000 mark, if for nothing else, just the posterity of knowing 18,000 people watch the broadcast or one of my videos. And by the way, I will start putting out more videos. It does seem like Facebook has loosened up the belt on my page for the moment. Of course, after a couple of videos with the types of topics I hit, it will probably get put back on. But for now, like I'm actually getting older videos that are starting to get views again, and things are starting to pick up organically. And I sort of stopped putting them out once I realized there's a shadow ban going on, because if you understand how shadow bans work, and I do now, unfortunately, even if you share my content, they'll stop everyone that you know from seeing it. Like once the content has that tag on it, like, yeah, you could stumble across it, you can get to it, you can find it. But when you try to, like, as far as distribute it or get it out there to more people, unless you sit there and personally message people with it, like you put it up in your timeline, no one will see it. Unless they go to your timeline specifically, they won't see it in their feed as something you posted. So I stopped producing them after a while because it takes work and I have a career and I'm trying to, it's hard enough to try and get the word out about Article 5 and do everything I'm doing. And then, put something out that nobody watches, not because they didn't like it, but because, the ones before they shadow ban, when it's open, they'll get 65,000 views, whatever. Like they'll get that. The one right now is like 1,200 reactions to it. It was like 50 weeks ago. But now it's like they've opened everything up. So now all of a sudden it's showing up in people's feeds again and it's getting play. So that was my cue that it might be time to start putting together a few videos. If there's a topic that you would like me to look into and put a video together for, drop it in the comments. I read all the comments for sure. Or you can message me directly at the Patriot Think Tank. That goes for anywhere. So you can hit me up on Twitter. Twitter is at Patriot Think Tank, but the Patriot, the NT in Patriot and first T in Think Tank are the same. So in case that crosses you up, but there is a blue check mark there. So you will see the blue check mark. And follow me on Twitter too. It's my experiment is Twitter. I'm slowly starting to interact with Twitter and kind of get familiar with the platform and whatever. I mean, the following is incredibly small. There's like 50 people, 45 people. But nonetheless, I'm trying to grow that because I just love the fact, like what Elon Musk just did, with the statements he just made about advertisers. I just thought, I've always been on the fence about Elon Musk because he's a billionaire and he's eccentric and he always seems to be on the right side of issues, but it's like he's also a little creepy with neuroscience and with a Neuralink and things like that. But when I listen to things like he just said, and if you haven't seen it, they were asking him about advertisers leaving Twitter because of his stance on the Hamas and Israel thing, and I guess he was sympathizing with Hamas in a statement. I didn't see the full statement, but I don't really care what the statement was. His opinion's his opinion. But he's like, if they want to blackmail me with money, he's like, F them. I was just like, he's basically saying, I don't need, like, Twitter is like something, if it breaks even, like, I'm fine. Like, if Twitter breaks even, I'm good. Like, and there is still plenty of advertising on Twitter. So whatever he's doing, I think he's doing it with some level of success. So how are you, Norm Sanders? Good to see you on. Slow night for comments today, but I had a lot to say, so that works. But the Elon thing was just great. I mean, that was just, and then I saw another clip from that interview where, Elon's like, look, and they're like, you think people are going to boycott Disney over this? And he was like, they already are. Meaning they're already boycotting Disney. If you're not aware, Disney has been taking a stock beating for years now. It's just been a straight line down. They haven't made money on a movie. The one movie in all of 2022 or 2023 made money, and it was Guardians of the Galaxy, like 20. I don't know what episode, which one it was, but every single other movie they put out lost money. And it wasn't much different the year before. Disney Plus is bleeding subscribers. Like, it's just, people are done with Disney, and everybody knows why. Even though, people want to act this and that, whatever. You read Bloomberg and they give you these joking. It's not joking. They're serious. But when you read it, it's a joke about the economic reasons, and, the market is this. And it's like, dude, nobody wants to, even their theme parks lost money. Like, ESPN lost money. Like, literally everything this company touches is tanking. And now they got a proxy war to deal with, where an investor, and I think it's Trian Enterprises, I forget the guy's name, but they're activist investors. He went and bought 36 million shares of Disney. Is demanding board seats. They won't give it to him. He's probably going to sit back and let the stock tank some more, and then buy another huge swath. And that's really what he's been doing, is just letting the stock crash. And then, as it's just been on a constant free fall, and he just keeps buying more shares. I think he's the largest single owner. Obviously, the conglomerates like BlackRock and Vanguard are still up top. But if it keeps up at this pace, this guy's going to have he's going to have full majority ownership. And it's going to get wild. It's going to get wild. So let's wait and see what happens with that. The guy's not he's not necessarily a staunch conservative, whatever, but I think he understands the business aspect of them being woke and going broke, and saying, you know what, if I buy this at this low point and can stop them from going woke and bring them back up again, that he'll make a mint. And he really would, I think, if that happened. Or it may be too late. People like Bud Light, where they're just like, dude, we're done. And they just never come back. We'll see. But it should be interesting to watch that pan out. So, but again, just to quickly hit on Elon again, I was just absolutely stoked to see those comments. And I think the more, it got me to start watching interviews with him and things that he's involved in. And, when you watch the long interviews and you just listen to like these conversations, and sometimes they're not even about much. One of them was about gaming and stuff, but you just listen to the way he thinks about it and the way that he approaches things. And you just stop, and you're just like, this guy thinks different. This guy's on another level. He's on another level. I mean, when he was thinking about Tesla, people were calling him crazy. People were calling him nuts. Now Tesla is like the electric car to get. When he's talking about reusable rockets, like, that was people were like, you're crazy. And now we have reusable rockets. Like, the government can't kill him because they need the stuff that he creates. They need those, like, things like those reusable rockets. Like, those are his. They have to buy those from him. Like, it's great to see, that, and there's no one else who's going to invest all the money in the tech to start developing those. So, like, in the end, like, the guy's got a corner on that market, right? He tells, when anyone else tells you they want to colonize Mars, you're like, whatever. When Elon Musk says he wants to colonize Mars, you're like, really? Like, what timeline? Like, that's the kind of thought process the dude goes through. So, like I said, I just found him fascinating. I would encourage people, not, I don't care if you support him, don't support him. I'm still skeptical. I always will be, but his interviews are incredibly interesting. If you go to YouTube, you see some of the long interviews with Elon Musk, whether, I think Joe Rogan's done one and other people have done them. It's intriguing to just listen to how that man thinks. All right, folks. So on that note, I've hit the hour. I'm going to go ahead and head out. Oh, by the way, I did pass. I passed my real estate license exam on Friday. So I'm excited about that. I'm hoping to find a broker shortly and start experimenting in that field. But yeah, just a little note about me. I'm pretty happy about that. But like I said, I'll be on next Wednesday, and I should be putting out some videos coming up soon. Just got to find a topic that I like, that I think is worth taking the time for. And once I do, I will be slapping that together and posting it. So look out for that, and make sure you hit that follow button. And if you haven't signed the petition for Article 5, the link is on my website, thepatriotthinktank.com. You can also get any of these cool T-shirts that I wear on the broadcast at the website as well. There is a link to the Etsy store up top on the front page, so you can go and check out the different stuff there. Until next time, folks, I'm out.